Hey, everybody. I have a very special treat for you. So, we've been talking about MLB trade deadline predictions, right? We're going to keep this thing going, but I have a very special guest today. This is Jim Riley from BALLCAP Sports. BALLCAP Sports is one of the foremost, most respected, and most rapidly growing YouTube channels out there, particularly baseball. If you like great baseball content and thinking to look at the sign behind me, we're talking Blue Jays here as well. So he talks about everything, but we're coming from the north now. So to get a different perspective of baseball knowledge, but at the highest level, I want to bring Jim on the channel tonight. So we're going to talk about our MLB free agent predictions. trade deadline predictions, and some other things as well. Jim, welcome to the channel.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. You reached out to me, and I was game for this from the start. You've got a great channel going there. I think you're a great place for Yankee fans to get together and sort of react to and talk about what's going on with the team and moves and everything. So I was more than happy to jump on and join and talk with you. So thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. And congratulations to you. You recently passed 25,000 subs. I want to give you congrats on that.
Thank you. Yep.
Heck of an accomplishment. Hopefully get there one day.
Just cranking along. You keep cranking along. You'll get there.
I'm hoping so. But, I like the Blue Jays and the Yankees dynamic because we're both in the AL East. We have similar needs, similar perspectives. So it's nice to have a different viewpoint on here and a different perspective. So, and it's your expertise, you can get a different level of knowledge that to share with. So let's talk about a few things. The first thing I want to talk about is a couple of, the top level guys. Yeah. Where are we predicting that these guys go? Right. And I think with what's going on with the trade deadline, everything's kind of changing by the day, right? Now that we know the qualifying offer is back and the international draft is kind of going to remain, I think that's going to have teams pivoting from free agency over to the trade deadline to kind of preserve some prospects. So what's your take on that? Do you see any change going on with that?
I think you're right. I think that part of the trade deadline has been slowed because at this point, we're less than a week away. We had deals a week, 2 weeks out last year. They weren't necessarily blockbuster. I think the Jock Peterson deal had gone down before we were a week out from last year's deadline, but we had deals. And they're all it's Bethencourt to Tampa. It's small stuff like that, and we haven't seen anything big. So I do think that you just referenced the international draft and the comp picks and all that was slowing things up. And as a nice transition piece, I think the other thing that is slowing things up is the Soto trade. I think that is slowing things up big time. That is holding the trade deadline hostage at this point, in my opinion.
Do you think he's going to be the first domino to fall, the first big domino?
I don't, because I think there are going to be teams that just move on and say, we're not going to be able to meet the price. Even if they come down to, they come down to 90% or 80% of the current ask. I think there are going to be teams that are like, we can't even meet that. So we got to move on. We can't let Luis Castillo or Wilson Contreras or anybody like that get out from our grasp because we're waiting around on Juan Soto. Look at the Freddie Freeman sweepstakes in the offseason. Eventually teams gave up on that, right? The Blue Jays gave up on that. The Yankees gave up on that. Braves gave up on that. Eventually teams are like, you know what? We got to make a decision. We got to go. Now, I did see a quote from the Blue Jays GM, Ross Atkins, today talking about how at this point, because it's early still, sort of, the asking prices are really high, and it sort of levels out the closer you get to the deadline, because if you have Luis Castillo or Juan Soto or Benetendi, or the list goes on, you are throwing out it's the negotiation, right? You're starting up here, and that really you'll accept something down here, but you're up here at the beginning. And then as that deadline approaches, you kind of come down a little bit. So Atkins was shedding a little light on that today from the Blue Jays, that asking prices are just really high across the board right now.
And I couldn't agree more. And it's just like, they're asking for the stars. We're coming in at the clouds. You got to meet them there somewhere in between. We just don't know what the midpoint's going to be. And to me, like you said too, holding things hostage, I think Soto's the only player that could stop teams from making other moves.
Right.
Asking price is going to be so prohibitively high.
Right.
And so to me, I think it's best for teams like the Blue Jays and Yankees to strike first and pivot, address other needs. And then if you can still get Soto somehow, you do it. I think the Washington Nationals are probably going to wait to the very last minute to move him anyway. If they move him, they might even wait to the postseason. I mean, to the postseason when there'll be more teams available bidding for this guy. So
yeah, they don't. The thing with the Nats is they don't have to do this right now.
Yeah,
they will get the highest return if they can do it right now, because of a sense of urgency that some teams feel, and the fact that you get him for this playoff run. But they don't necessarily have to. And I mean, who knows what's going on there in that front office and behind the scenes? The prospective buyers for the new team. I don't know if anybody's going to weigh in there, but some of these prospective owners might be like, no, don't trade him. If I'm buying this team, I want him on this team. So, I mean, who knows? This is really, it's really interesting to see this whole situation playing out, because this does not come along that often. This does not happen that often when you get this kind of a player, swirling in the trade winds.
At 23 at his talent level, no, I mean, he's a generational player. But if you could pull out your crystal ball, where would you see him going if he did get moved?
Well, I've got it down. I believe it will come down to the Padres and the Dodgers. I know there's a lot of love for the Cardinals. That seems to have cooled lately. I know that there has been a lot of love for the Yankees. But again, this is one of those things where, word was that the Yankees had pushed the pause button on the Contreras deal because they want to make sure they have the pieces for a Soto deal in case Soto's asking price comes down at all. So, but eventually, do the Yankees keep that pause button? If it sounds like the Astros are going to swoop in and get Luis Castillo, then the Yankees say, okay, we gotta do this deal. We gotta send Sweeney and we gotta send Heel or something. We got to do this trip. We got to do the Castillo thing. We can't wait any longer. And then they'll be out officially on Soto. I think that that wanting Volpe is a very realistic ask for the Washington Nationals, but I don't know if the Yankees want to do that. And that whole dynamic, I think, ultimately will pull the Yankees out of the situation. The Padres, I don't think, have that same hesitancy. Preller loves to trade his prospects, right? Yeah. You the Yankees, you guys, your front office, Cashman, little bit more, holding on of the prospects lately. So that, I think, makes it harder. Preller doesn't necessarily do that as much. I think the Yankees have the better prospects to send than the Padres necessarily do. But I feel like it comes down to the Padres and Dodgers. If it does that, I think it's the Padres, because the Dodgers are already the favorites to win the National League, right? And represent the NL in the World Series. Yeah. So how much better, obviously Soto makes the team better, but how much more does it improve the team's chances of winning the World Series? I don't know how much. They're already going to be the favorite. And if they're looking at that and they're like, well, we're going to have to dump, 4 of our top 6 prospects to get this done, plus Gavin Lux, and then he's going to be a free agent anyway in 2.5 years.
That's a lot.
Why would we do this? And but the Padres don't have that, in my opinion. I think the Padres are free and easy to do whatever they want. And then the Cardinals, I think, coming back to the Cardinals, they've always been such a homegrown, prospect-driven team. Outside of Goldie and Arenado, look at the rest of that team. And that's something that they have always prided themselves in. Now, certainly you could change that for Juan Soto, but for everything that they're talking about, he will be a free agent. It will cost your top prospects. I think the Cardinals do have the pieces to get it done, but I think they'll be hesitant. I don't think the Padres will hesitate at all.
I agree. I think they're going to be really eager to overtake the Dodgers. So they would be willing to make the ballsy move. And I originally had predicted to the Dodgers, but I could see the Padres overtaking him. And as it pertains to the Yankees and Blue Jays, I think he's gettable, but he does not solve either team's pitching problem.
Right.
So you get him. Are we going to be able to address pitching? I don't know as it relates to the Blue Jays. I mean, I think the Yankees are going to be really hard to address pitching, and we need help behind Garrett Cole.
Right. You got Cortez, you got Cole. Montgomery got roughed up by the Mets. You don't like that. You got a situation with Severino. I mean, Domingo Germán, at least, he kept you in the game tonight against the Mets. You can get some good performances, but if you want to win a World Series and you got to go up against that Astros pitching, you have to make sure your pitching is on point to get that done, because you can have Juan Soto and Aaron Judge and Stanton and just line them up. But if the Astros are throwing darts and you can't hit them, you're going to have a tough time in that series.
Yeah, and from the other front, on the flip side, it doesn't make sense scoring 10 runs a game when we're giving up 11, right?
Right. Yes,
So,
exactly.
that's
Exactly.
it's either get 2 starters or get Juan Soto. I mean, that's kind of the decision that at the very least Cashman has to make.
And I think Cashman would go the route of go get 2 starters. That's just what I feel he would do. Is he would go get the pitching. In my feeling,
he hasn't gotten Cole any frontline help since he's been here. We need that 1B. We need that clear eye. So we both have him predicted to the National League West, which is probably the right place. What about Luis Castillo? Where do you think he would go?
I think Luis Castillo. We did I did a trade destination power ranking today, and I have the Yankees as the number 1 fit there. I have Houston number 2. I have the Yankees number 1. I think the Yankees, they were talking about doing that deal last year. There was talk that the Reds wanted Gleyber Torres for Castillo, and the Yankees said, no, thank you. And that deal died at that point, but things have changed now. I think my pick is Castillo to end up with the Yankees just because of Cashman, the moves. I think they'll bow out of the Soto situation. I think especially if the Yankees look at the Astros as the competitor for that maybe, see, this is one of those things where you kind of got to like look at the smoke signals. Is the Castillo to the Astros rumor coming from the Castillo camp to get the Yankees to pull the trigger? Because that's the last team that the Yankees want Luis Castillo to go to are the Houston Astros.
That would crush me. I mean, it would absolutely crush me if you went that. Yeah. To me, all roads right now are going to go through Houston to get to the World Series. There's 2 teams in the American League that frighten me: the Blue Jays and the Astros. The 2 teams that frighten me are those teams. The Blue Jays are back, trending upward. Okay, after a slow start, they're hot. So, and I don't want to have a collision course with these guys. So, and Astros the same thing. They've neutralized the Yankees hitters, their pitchers, and their clutch hitters have been just that against our pitching. So we need somebody to kind of neutralize their clutch hitters.
Right.
And Castillo to me represents the best fit that's out there. The needle mover, the difference maker, do it.
I would rather have Castillo over Montas. That's just me.
That's the next guy I was going to ask you where you have.
Yeah, I would rather have Castillo over Montas. I know that Tariq Skubal could be available. What's interesting, here's what's interesting. We don't have this on our sheet, but let me ask you. Miami yesterday said they're willing to talk anybody but Alcantara. Would you rather have, as a Yankee fan, would you rather have Luis Castillo or would you rather have Pablo Lopez?
That's a good question, because Pablo Lopez has an extra year of control.
Yes, he does. And Pablo Lopez, we've got 3 really solid years of Lopez now. And Castillo's been good, but Castillo's had some ups and some downs. Pablo Lopez feels like he's just a steady guy. I think the nastier stuff lives with Castillo, but that is something that could be interesting. You can see Miami and Detroit both hanging out there in case Castillo goes to Houston, and let's say Montas goes to I don't know, Minnesota. Skubal and Lopez would be the next 2 that teams generate. And if the Yankees end up with Lopez because they missed out on Castillo, I think that would be a win. I think if I were you, if I was Yankees, I'd rather have Lopez because of the extra control and because it just feels like a steadier pitcher.
And I think he wouldn't, Lopez I would pick too, because he wouldn't prevent the Yankees from either adding somebody like a Martin Perez as a second starter or pivoting to relief then. He would cost a little bit less than Castillo, I think. I think Castillo's ceiling is a little bit higher, but I like the extra controllable year. Again, the Yankees personally, I think they need 2 starters and 2 relievers. Their bullpen is now gutted, so they need to fortify that a little bit. Right. And Lopez, I think, would make it easier for them to pivot to do those things.
Very well, could
it'd be Lopez. Yeah, but Frankie Montas, I haven't predicted to go to Tampa Bay.
You have Tampa. I have St. Louis. Again, I think St. Louis will end up bowing out of the Soto. But what'll happen during the whole process of St. Louis in that conversation is they'll open up to the idea of maybe parting with a couple prospects. And you got a situation in St. Louis where Happ is on the IL, forget Flaherty. I mean, you don't even know what you're gonna get from Flaherty this year.
Yeah.
So Montas could slide in there and, oh, by the way, be a part of next year's team because you want to compete again next year without having to spend a ton of money. So that rotation next year with Flaherty and Montas and Wainwright, this could be Wainwright's last go. It kind of fills some holes for St. Louis. It fills holes now. It fills holes in the future. Yeah. I kind of like it. And again, they're going to open up to the idea of parting with maybe win, and another prospect gets it done for an Oakland trade. I could see. I mean, listen, I feel like the Blue Jays kind of swindled Oakland. It's hard to say that because Oakland and Tampa, they're professional traders. You kind of trust whatever they do. But I know the return that Toronto gave to Oakland for Matt Chapman. And I don't know. I mean, outside the pitcher, and the pitcher just came off surgery, I don't know how much Oakland really got out of that trade. So there could be a good trade here between St. Louis and Oakland. So I'll go Rays are a good one. That's a good one. I'll go Cardinals.
Cardinals is a good fit too. And I don't think they'd have to give up Gorman or Liberatore. Those are the two guys that Washington want, both of them for Soto. So you can keep those guys and then upgrade your rotation. And you could probably bring in a bat to a degree too.
I think so.
And that would be a big pickup, I think, for the Cardinals. Yep. I mean, it really would. Now, how about the Pittsburgh trifecta? Brian Reynolds, David Bednar, and even the newly hot piece of the week, Quintana, Mr. Jose Quintana. The lefty starting pitcher. It's crazy.
I hope that Reynolds stays. I really like what Pittsburgh could do with Reynolds and Hayes and Cruz and build around that. Word is I haven't heard much on Bednar. I know Quintana is most definitely going to get traded. I think Quintana will be traded, and that's going to be interesting because he's had this little renaissance with Pittsburgh this year, but can he continue that? I don't know. I mean, he's going to be an interesting piece. Quintana, to me, feels like the most likely. Reynolds would be the one that grabs all the headlines. But I would say I think Quintana is the most likely of that group to get dealt. And if he does go, then my feeling on Quintana, that's another St. Louis situation. That could be an easy, low cost pickup for St. Louis. A couple teams that I originally thought that could be on Quintana are now maybe going to become sellers, the Red Sox and the Giants.
Yeah.
Philly could go for it. Another team. It's funny. I did a sort of a trade bait. I did all my notes a couple weeks ago, and I've updated it. But originally with Quintana, I had Boston, I had San Francisco, and I had the White Sox. I don't know if any of them are going to be aggressive at the deadline with how they've been playing. So it could be St. Louis. It could be Philly that could go for it. But I think Philly, that's an interesting one to me. I would predict Philly for Quintana, and I'll predict that the other two stay put. How about you?
I'm kind of a similar creed. I mean, my fantasy would have been for the Yankees to distract everybody and think they're getting Soto when they swoop in and get Brian Reynolds. Brian Reynolds solves the leadoff problem, the center field problem, and the switch hitter problem that the Yankees have all in one. And it gives them speed at the top of the lineup, defense, and several years of control.
Right.
And he would cost less than Soto.
Right.
But I don't see them doing. I also see him staying. And I think I agree with you. They want to build around some of this young nucleus. And Bednar kind of represents the same thing. And he's controllable until 2027.
Yeah.
So, but he's a big, stocky guy like Liam Hendricks. So he's a guy I would love for the Yankees getting the bullpen. I just don't think he's being moved. He's going to cost a ransom wherever he goes. So if he does get moved, I see him going to a place like Houston or something like that to really fortify. Like that'd be one of Houston's big pieces to really put them over the top. Their bullpen's already pretty filthy, but adding somebody like that will really put them over the top. But I see those two guys saying Quintana, I see St. Louis as well, and maybe Minnesota as a depth pitcher.
Minnesota's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah. I think they're going to be adding pieces like here and there just to try to win this division and get in the postseason.
Yeah, the Twins definitely don't feel like a team that make a big splash, right? Like I mean, I could see Montas as a fit for the Twins. I can see some of that, but if you can make a move like Quintana, he's out there and you don't have to give up nearly as much. I feel like that would be the way the Twins would go. Twins are a good one.
Yeah, I think so. Now, how about this other trio from the Chicago Cubs? Happ, D-Rob, and Contreras.
And it is. I feel like two of them are going to go in the same package. I mean, right? Robertson is such a coveted piece because if Bednar doesn't go, if Bard doesn't go, if some of these, if Barlow doesn't go from KC, Robertson is the arm to go and get. So that is an interesting one. Contreras, it's going to be Contreras and Robertson to the Mets, or it'll be Happ and Robertson to the Mets. I mean, I feel like the Mets are going to pull the trigger on something. I don't know. I know the Astros are also in on Wilson Contreras. There's a few for it. I like the Yankees as a potential fit. I did something. Oh, I did a Wilson Contreras trade video. This is back, but this was like a month ago. Sort of a primer for the player being one of the top trade pieces. And I predicted the Yankees to go and get him, but the more I've thought about it with Tampa and their catching situation, I think they may be a little bit more desperate. Houston, with not necessarily the catching situation, because Contreras does not upgrade your catching. He'll probably DH more than catch wherever he goes. And again, the Mets are so desperate to try to improve their slugging. And Contreras would help do that. That's one of the areas the Mets have the biggest need. The Mets are okay with batting average. They're okay with on-base percentage. Contreras would help. So I've got it between the Mets. I've kind of got a 4-team race here for Contreras. The Mets, the Yankees, the Astros, and the Rays. And it's really a guess. If I had to pick one for now, I'll say that it ends up being – I'm going to go back to my original pick. I like the Yankees as a potential fit for Contreras just because of what he does at bat. You've got Trevino right now. You don't want to throw a catcher into a new situation necessarily in the run, but again, Contreras probably catches certainly, but might DH more.
And with Stanton out, having somebody to fill in at DH might be, Stanton might take a while to come back. He's got Achilles tendonitis now.
Right.
So he's on the IL. And with a big guy, he tends to come back slowly. So a guy like that. And just to your point with catching too, I think he's probably the only catcher that's acquirable that would not throw the rhythm of a rotation out of whack.
Right.
He's the guy that could adapt to everybody really quickly. So I think he might do a combination of catching and DHing too.
And you've got a situation there in New York when Stanton is back. There's so much versatility. One of the things that your club got this year, like with Isaiah kind of Falefa, and there's a lot of versatility. Carpenter can kind of play everywhere. I feel like you could go into a situation where, like right now, tonight, Carpenter's in right. You could have a situation where the outfield could be Judge, Stanton, and Hicks, and your DH is Contreras.
It could
be because Torres goes to second. DJ can play anywhere you need it to. The versatility has come up big this year for the Yankees, and I think that helps the possibility of a Contreras trade because you put Stanton out there and he's been all right. He's not a Gold Glover, but he's all right. He can get the job done.
Yeah, I think playing the outfield makes his bat better. So, and I think we all know that he's here for his bat. So, and Contreras, I could see Yankees. I haven't predicted Houston being that other piece that they might get to kind of put him over the top.
Right.
I had Happ and Robertson to the Yankees, but I've heard earlier that, the Mets are in discussions right now with the Cubs for Wilson Contreras and David Robertson.
Yep.
And that was earlier. So that could happen. And Uncle Steve can pull off something. We could wake up tomorrow morning and he made the trade.
Yeah, no doubt. And this is where those sort of those circumstances that are happening outside of a deal like that, Yankees being in a conversation for Soto, maybe wanting to hold on to prospects. The Mets seem to be clearly out at this point. So can the Mets pounce because the Yankees are holding on to prospects?
Yeah.
The Mets are restricted by what they could do with Washington. It's hard to get Bell. It's hard to get Soto because it's a division rival. Not a division rival there with the Cubs. So it could look like it's an easier deal to pull off. And again, it helps them. The Mets have an issue. They don't really have any lefties that they could trust out of the pen. Robertson is not a lefty, but he gets lefties out at a pretty significant rate. Lefties are hitting the OPS for left-handed bats is 500 against Robertson this year. He's been really tough on lefties. So they can upgrade. They can get the bat that they need, and they can get the pitching. And do you think that they swoop in while the Yankees are holding prospects for maybe a chance at Soto or Castillo, and the Mets get aggressive and jump in there for these two. It's really those sort of outside circumstances could impact how this plays out with the two New York teams.
I think there's going to be a lot of Houdini stuff, a lot of gamesmanship going on.
Yes.
That's going to make it very fascinating.
Right.
Basically, I mean, I don't think I'm going to sleep very much the next couple of days.
I'm staying up late just in case anything happens at like midnight. I want to be available. I want to be here to talk about it with my people.
Exactly. I hope to do the same. Like I usually do the post game after the Yankees game. I would love to be able to report something like, oh my God, it just happened live.
Right.
And share that with people. Like there's nothing cooler than that.
Yep.
So I hope it happens. Now let's move over to the other catcher. I think who's probably the most notable guy, Sean Murphy from the A's.
Mm-hmm.
He, to me, I have him a dead bet going to Cleveland.
There is some hype. There is some talk about Cleveland. I think at the end of the day, I think he's going to end up staying. I will say that Sean Murphy ends up staying in Oakland just because I don't believe Sean Murphy has even entered arbitration yet, if memory serves me correct. And what Oakland's trying to get are pieces like Sean Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
Still young, the high upside, and not a lot of money going out, and not a lot of money going out for the next couple of years. And Murphy kind of fits that profile right now. So I feel like, and again, because of the trade deadline, you acquire Murphy. If you're a team that is in the market for a catcher, how much does his catching help you? Because you got to acclimate him with the whole new pitching staff and everything. So Murphy might be easier to pull off during the off season. I have seen the Cleveland stuff. I'm going to say though that Murphy ends up staying put.
I could see that too. I could see him moved. And I think the main reason why I could see him being moved now in the offseason is because they got Shane Langoliers in the Matt Olson trade. He's a high-level prospect. They also have Tyler Soderstrom. So they've got two guys beating right down his doorstep that just replace him pretty easily. So I figure now is probably the best time to move the guy because we have these kids waiting in the wings that can just come up and replace him. So we might as well get as much value as we possibly can.
And if Cleveland comes along with a Zach Plesac, one of the arms that they have, then that could probably get the deal done. If that's the trade, I could see it because Oakland, the rebuild is going to, obviously you need the bats, but the pitching is going to be big for them. And if they can get one of those Cleveland pitchers away for him, then they'll do that deal in a heartbeat. It's just a matter of, does that go down? And
now that we know they're available, Cleveland made them available today. So it's pretty fascinating. It's another piece of this puzzle that we'll continually try to put together. Now, the last guy I had on the board, Daniel Bard. I think he's probably the underrated weapon in the bullpen that I think not a lot of people are talking about, but probably should be. Former Boston super prospect, and he missed the game for like 5-6 years. Now he's the Rockies closer. I think he could probably be had for not a ransom, but he could be a very valuable weapon in somebody's bullpen. I actually have him pegged to the Mets.
That would be good. Yeah, there's Daniel Bard could go. Let's see. I did my notes, my prep for just trade stuff, and I had Daniel Bard, St. Louis, San Francisco, Atlanta. I do feel like Atlanta will add a bullpen piece after going through the World Series and how heavily they relied on their bullpen. Atlanta's going to feel the need to be stocked up there. Tampa, Philly, San Diego, Toronto, Minnesota. There's a ton of teams that can be in the mix for Bard. The problem is that for now anyway, the Rockies are going to try to extend Bard and not trade him. That was the last word I heard. Now that was about a week ago, and I haven't seen a ton of trade rumors pick up, though it could always change. We're at a point where, in Ken Rosenthal's report, it was out there, in Passan's report, all here in the last couple of days, winning teams are calling losing teams and asking who's available. And so you're getting phone calls. This fired up some Ohtani passion in the last 24, 48 hours, because it was in the report that the Angels are getting phone calls on Ohtani and Trout. It doesn't mean that they're available. Everyone's getting phone calls. So the Rockies are getting phone calls on Bard, but they want to extend him. I don't trust the Rockies to do the right thing. They screwed up last trade deadline by holding on to John Gray and holding on to Trevor Story. And I think that they'll do that again this year, because it's the same. The Rockies, it was their interim GM. He was promoted to the full-time GM. I think that he's going to do the same thing he did last year. He's going to hold on to these pieces with these dreams of re-signing them.
Yeah.
And it won't happen. And they will, with Bard, I don't think you will be able to attach a compensation pick to him. That was the thing with Story, right? And they didn't do the comp with John Gray. So the whole thing's just messed up there. So I honestly don't trust Colorado to do the right thing. I think they are going to end up holding on to him, and they'll lose him in the offseason. I think Rockies are going to mess it up.
Yeah, I have a feeling. I have a feeling. So, if he does get moved, I think he'll go to the Mets. But I could see them doing that because you're right. They did the same thing. They just don't run their organization extremely well.
No. And Trevor Story, there was a quote last year. Trevor Story was asked. He's like, I don't know why I'm still here. After the trade deadline, Trevor Story, I don't know why I'm still here. So come on. I don't trust them to do the right thing.
I couldn't agree more with that. Now let's talk about our teams here.
Yeah.
A couple of moves that you think would put the Blue Jays over the top. What do you think they would be or should be?
Well, we're hearing that the pitching and a bat is the focus. And Atkins again today was saying that the prices are extremely high.
Yeah.
So the Blue Jays, I don't think they're going to swoop in and pull anything off like tonight or maybe even not even tomorrow. But I think that the Blue Jays are in on those top pitchers that are available. Think about what it could cost. Think about Barrios last year getting traded for Austin Martin. Austin Martin was the Blue Jays' number 1 or number 2 prospect, and Simeon Wood Richardson. And Woods Richardson was, I think, the number 4, number 5. He was one of the top pitching prospects. So you got to think that that should be about the market for somebody like Frankie Montas or something like that. I'm sure the market maybe is a little bit higher right now based on the comments by Atkins. So they're gonna. I feel like the Blue Jays will go and do at least one starter. I don't know if they're going to feel like they need a frontline starter like Castillo or Montas, or if they go to sort of a back of the rotation guy, because Manoah when he's on is great. Gausman when he's on, Barrios when he's on. Those 3 guys, that's a formidable 1, 2, 3 if they're all locked in and you're going in a postseason series. So what does Luis Castillo give you if you have those 3 locked in? So it makes me think that the Blue Jays maybe go with Martin Perez. If Perez becomes available, we know the Rangers are trying to be competitive this year. Congratulations. Like, are they giving out trophies for being competitive? Because I don't know. If you're 500, if you're a 500 team, are they giving out trophies? That's what the Rangers are going for. So they may hold on to Perez, which is ridiculous. And I think that you've got to think maybe the Blue Jays are in that Quintana or Perez conversation and not necessarily the Skubal and Castillo, because maybe they look at the rotation at the rotation and think we don't really need to go and get a 1 or 2 because we have 3 1s. So if we go into a series now, somebody could get hurt tomorrow or in the next couple of days and everything could change. But I think the Blue Jays will go for pitching. I think they'll add to the bullpen. Give me one bullpen piece. Give me a righty. I don't think they go for any of the lefties that are available. I'll take one of the righty arms, and there's going to be a litany of them. Not to the extreme of Robertson. I think they go with a pitcher. Again, probably not Castillo or Montas. And I think they try to get a Josh Bell or an Ian Happ or somebody like that so I think they get all 3 of those things. I think they will be very aggressive. It'll probably happen, the day of or the day before when the prices start to sort of level out a little bit. Mm-hmm. That's my prediction for the Jays, that they sort of solidify the team. They get a lefty bat, again, or switch hitting bat. If you get Bell, then him and Vladdy can kind of go back and forth between first and DH. If you get Happ, then you can just, again, Springer could DH if you want to. Teoscar could DH, and you put Happ in the outfield. So that's the feeling that I get that the Blue Jays, that's the way I think that they will go. So
that's pretty
big time blockbuster. I don't know, but good moves, big additions.
Needed moves. I mean, I struggle with the Yankees because every year I hear they're in on everybody, right?
Right.
They're every person you can think of, they're in on him. But it's almost like they're trying to get the Tiffany ring, but they're trying to get it at Walmart, right? Or something like that when they're shopping. It's like, guys, let's planet Earth here, okay?
Right.
I would love Luis Castillo. I know a lot of the talks revolve around Castillo right now, so I could see that being the piece. But at the end of the day, I could see a Montas. Would I like him? I'll take a Montas and a Martin Perez over a Castillo by himself. I think 2 pitchers. I think would be one for the Yankees for depth reasons. I would go for a volume deadline this year with some quality in it, and pivoting to the and even though I've got Happ and Robinson predicted, I don't necessarily know that's going to happen. So I would be pivoting over to the Detroit bullpen and try to get somebody like Andrew Chafin and a Michael Fulmer. I think both of them are gettable, one lefty, one righty, reliable, and they're not going to break the bank. Because as we know, Cashman hates overpaying for everything. He overpays in free agency, but not in trades.
Right.
Cashman rarely gets fleeced in trades. So the appetite for them moving some big pieces to get big players is not always there. And it's unfortunate, as much as we'd like for them to do that. So I could see them doing, in the perfect world, I could see them doing a Castillo and a Happ and a Robinson and then being done. I could see it the most, or getting a Montas and a Martin Perez, and then like those 2 guys from Detroit. And if they do that, I'm not exactly sure that they're going to try to get an outfielder. I would like Happ, I would like Brian Reynolds, but I don't know that it's going to do it. I love the switch hitting aspect, giving the lineup more versatility, but at the same time, I think they need to move Gallo, obviously, for whatever they move him for. And if they're not going to get an outfield, then please give a kid like Esteban Florial a chance to just play there, because they're paying Gallo's salary just like Chapman's. They're paying their salaries regardless. So I don't see either personally being on the postseason roster. So give a young kid a chance.
Oh, right.
And let them. You might as well pay. You're going to pay that money anyway. Just get more production out of the roster spots.
I don't think there's a world where Gallo can get a single postseason at bat. I mean, even in the 15th inning, and he's the final bat, maybe he gets to that bat. But even then, I don't think you can have Gallo there. People
would try to burn the stadium down. It would be crazy.
Yeah,
I can't see it. I just can't see it. But that's kind of the way I'm looking right now. I hope I'm wrong to a degree. I hope the Yankees do more than we like. But that's Cashman. You think he's going to do a lot, he does nothing. You think he's going to do nothing, he does a lot. He's kind of like Houdini as the GM, so you can't read him.
Last year's trade deadline netted you guys Gallo and Rizzo, and was that was the bulk of it, wasn't it?
And that was it.
And Holmes.
Yeah.
So that was it. And those were. I mean, you didn't expect Gallo to be this bad. You knew he struck out a ton, but you figured that, listen, the guy can hit 40 homers. Let's go. Let's see it. And it has been a disaster. Now Rizzo's worked out. That Rizzo situation worked out really well.
Yeah, I'm happy.
I think that I really think there's probably a situation where if they didn't trade for Rizzo last deadline, that it might not have been as easy to bring him back via free agency. It just kind of felt like Rizzo was waiting for the Yankees to call up and be like, come on back. He's like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting one. I do think that he will look at this and he will say, I need to go into a postseason series with Cole, Cortez, and another, don't even need to think about it, ace, right? Tyone, maybe. Tyone's been good this year, and Montgomery has had some good moments this year, but I don't know if you want to go into a pivotal game, maybe series deciding game with Montgomery or Tyone on a short leash, because you know how it works in the postseason. If they get into 2 base runners on in the first inning, the bullpen's going, and then they're out in the second inning. But if you had Cole, Cortez, and Castillo, or Cole, Castillo, and Montas, I think you feel a little bit more comfortable with that kind of situation. So I do think you get one of those arms. I mean, the fact that the Yankees have been considered the front runners, and they you get the report from NJ.com that they pushed the pause button on the Castillo because of the Juan Soto thing. They're going to make a big splash. I do think you guys will make a big splash. I think you'll get your pitcher. The bat will be interesting to see after you pay the price for Castillo, what kind of impact bats are still there. How many top prospects do they want to give up to try to address that? I mean, I think the Matt Carpenter love affair cooling off a little bit there in Yankee land.
Probably he's 2 for his last 20. So I personally don't want to rely on him too much.
Right.
But, as he's there, but I think he has the Raul Ibanez effect. When Ibanez was fantastic when he's here, but it's not enough.
Yeah.
We still need a guy, an athletic guy who can play great defense and a couple of things that, as a more contact-oriented guy, like we're essentially relying on him for home runs. And this is where the Yankees get in trouble sometimes, relying on home runs a little too
That
often.
was the undoing last year, right?
Yes.
That was the undoing last year. It was home run or nothing, and that ended up killing him.
Yeah, so a more contact guy who can play defense would be who can hit it well against righties, particularly Houston's righties and the Mets righties would be a good idea.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's your. I mean, I don't think the Yankees have been linked to Josh Bell, but you can see how they've been linked to Andrew Benetendi because of that, right? You can hear you understand why Benny has been linked to it. I mean, the question is the whole vaccination status. I know it seems like the Blue Jays are out because of that. The Yankees seemed like they were front runners despite it. So maybe he'll get the shot. But yeah, I mean, Benny would be a great one based on how he's hitting this year to get on base for the homers.
Perfect fit. He really would. My worry about the vaccination thing is it's a couple of other layers. Like obviously, if you're not vaccinated, you're more prone to getting it, but you're more prone to expending it to your teammates as well. But the quarantine period is twice as long for unvaxxed players than it is for vaxxed players. So you're going to miss twice the amount of games.
Right. And there's so many drawbacks to it. And his quotes after were talking about how it's a personal choice and all of that. So it really feels like he doesn't want to get vaccinated. I mean, maybe he will. But
you can't take that chance. Can't take that risk.
Yeah, no, you definitely can't.
So not if you want to win a World Series. We just can't do it.
Right.
So and lastly, if you could, to finish this off, because this has been an awesome time, if you could think of one blockbuster trade that would probably throw baseball into chaos, throw the trade deadline into complete insanity, what do you think it would be? I think you like mine. What do you think?
I am gonna go. I'm thinking about everybody that's available. Are we going with players who we've heard are available, or are we going to go off the just
you can go off
caution to the wind and anyone's available?
You can go off the grid if you want. You can do whatever. Anything that would be just like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened.
I mean, obviously Ohtani. And Ohtani, anything Ohtani is a blockbuster. But all indications are that's not going to happen. Miami saying that Jazz Chisholm, they did not say Jazz Chisholm available, but Miami saying they'll talk anybody but Alcantara makes you think, would they trade Jazz Chisholm? It's obviously the Soto thing. I will say that something that would just rock the baseball world and send it upside down would be Ohtani being traded. And we playfully, again, in the trade destination power rankings today, had the Mets as the number one destination for an Ohtani trade.
Oh my God.
Ohtani to the Mets would absolutely send the baseball world spiraling. I don't think baseball Twitter would recover for weeks if that trade actually ever came to fruition. So I'll have an Ohtani to the Mets, and obviously the Mets are unloading the vault of top prospects in that kind of a deal.
Yeah, man, that would be nuts.
Yeah.
I have one that I think the Blue Jays are one of the teams that could turn things upside down. So I have them forming a super rotation and adding Shane Bieber and Zach Plesac to that rotation and forming a 90s Atlanta Braves juggernaut rotation to go with that ridiculous offense that they have. Yep. And that, to me, I would not want to face that team in the playoffs. I don't care who it is. I don't want to face that team in the playoffs. That is
a realistic thing, right? That with Passan's article today about, the trade deadline and the pitching element, that Cleveland is listening to, offers, taking phone calls on all of their controllable pitching, including Bieber, but it would have to be a crazy deal for Bieber. I mean, the Blue Jays could put that together, and there is the connection with Shapiro coming from Cleveland, going to Toronto. Who that would be that would be something, and that would be pretty wild.
Well, before we wrap up, who do you think would have to go in a trade like that? Teoscar, like who do you think would have to go in that?
I think you're probably sending either Gurriel or Hernandez, and then you're probably also going to have
Pearson.
You're going to have a bunch of your prospects. I think of the top 10, probably if you have Teoscar or Lourdes in that deal, you probably have. Well, you would at least have 2 from the top 5, because that's what Barrios was, and obviously Barrios is Bieber's a higher caliber than Barrios. So if you go Gurriel's been on fire. Gurriel's amazing. So I don't know if they would do that. The Blue Jays would try to make it as prospect heavy as possible, because the Jays did not want to part with major league talent, guys that were going to make the trip to Toronto during spring training, the guys that were going to make the big league club for Jose Ramirez. So that tells you what they feel about the core, the roster that they've got right now. They don't want to part with those pieces. So the Blue Jays would try to make it as prospect driven as possible to do that. So you're looking at Ricky Tiedemann, you're looking at Jordan Groshans, or Elvis Martinez, which is a huge name in the prospect world for the Blue Jays, or Elvis Martinez. That's the package that you're going to look at. Probably maybe those 3, or Elvis Martinez, Jordan Groshans, Ricky Tiedemann, basically the Blue Jays top 3.
That would be the mother of all trades, I think, in my opinion. Either one of those, Ohtani to the Mets would be completely insane, and this Blue Jays trade would be completely nuts too.
Yep.
Dude, what a great time! I want to thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me. I know we went longer. I was like, hey, let's do like 15, 20 minutes. I know we're way over that, but this stuff is so fun to talk about. We just kind of go. So yes, this was a lot of fun, and I appreciate you having me on to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, and guys, if you haven't seen BALLCAP Sports, please go take a look at it. You're going to see some of the best baseball content. Please support it by subscribing to the channel as well. And again, Jim, thanks so much for coming on. And let's talk again after the deadline and see how everybody did.
You bet. Sounds good.
All right, man. Take it easy, man.
Thanks.
Talk
You
to
too.
Bye, buddy.